Welcome to our Fireside Chat on managing cybersecurity talent crisis and the dilemma of controls deployment through a simulated lab-based approach. We are thrilled to have you join us today. In this session, we'll cover how to simplify the application of security controls, build and retain cybersecurity talent, and how threat and mitigation simulation labs can help us address these challenges. Get ready to enhance your knowledge on this critical topic.
Hi, Anindya. Good morning.
Hey, hi, Arindam. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been quite some time.
Yeah,
So, sitting in two different countries, but enjoying a chat on a topic we both love chatting.
Oh, we do.
So, Anindya, to get today's chat, we would like to discuss a few things which we have been observing for some time, right? One is, of course, cybersecurity, we all know is of growing importance, but it has its own complex challenges. At the same time, we as a consultant or you as a solution provider, how can we sort of simplify things for the client? I think that's one aspect of it. To give it a context, maybe we'll talk mainly about two and then talk about how we can possibly uh, by joining hands, provide some value to our end clients. So starting with the first point that comes to my mind, so RSM being the sixth largest audit and consulting firm in the world, we do a huge amount of cybersecurity assessment, regulatory compliance, VAPT, red teaming across the globe, and even in the Middle East. What often comes to the forefront, even from the client side, is you've given us all these recommendations for controls and all of these things, but the practical applicability also comes under question. Does one really need to change things in the application, which is core to the business? Isn't that more risky? That often is one question. Second question is, often the CISO is questioned by the CEO that, I'm spent millions in terms of, securing my perimeter, my applications, my blah, blah, but still breaches are happening, right? So what do you think as, a security guru that you are, that, how can we sort of, first of all, simplify this challenge for the client? And second of all, give them sort of some solution, some fix to this, complexity, so as to say. What's your views, Anindya?
Arindam, I think you have touched upon a point which is actually created by the security gurus. Okay. See, all this while we have been trying to force something back to the customers.
That sounds like a confession, Anindya.
That's really a confession, and I have to agree that we have been pushing on to the customers some things which are not practically applicable. Okay, so we always have to talk about CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Availability last.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you go into the OT space, which is the the shop floor space, they always talk about AIC, availability first. Okay.
True.
Now, in this changing dynamics of increased digitalization, availability has to be kept in mind. Okay. And we have been investing millions of dollars in security technologies, right? We put firewall, IPS, endpoint security, SIEM, and whatnot. Okay. And finally, we go and test the applications. We go and find out problems in the applications. What is that? There's a secure code. There is there's a patch every Tuesday patch, and now it's grown out of proportions. Okay. And we expect the business to fix the application in spite of spending so much of millions of dollars on the controls. Okay. Now it's an oxymoron that we are trying to promote. On the one side, I am saying that I invest in security controls, and then I go back and tell that. So this has been there for some time. And worldwide, there's a phenomenon which is emerging, which is to solve the last mile problem of the CISO. Okay. And that's what we have been working on. And it's a great collaboration that we are having with RSM. Okay, in this space. Okay, and it involves two large pillars that we are going to solve. Okay, and we are solving worldwide, and I'm going to have a discussion with you at the applicability in that region. But firstly, let me tell you what we are doing in the space. Number one is that globally, worldwide, things are now being put into a framework space. Okay, So if talk about the MITRE framework, we talk about the NIST framework, you need to adapt a framework in the technology space. Okay. Now that's easier said than done. It's understanding the deployment that you have done, in that framework. So have you put that in the framework of controls that has been deployed? I mean, are you adhering to that? Okay. From a technology standpoint. Number two is that please test your breachability of the company. How do you test the breachability of the company? Okay. Now, the breachability of the company can be tested by two things again, what we are doing. Okay. First of all, you have to enumerate in the real sense what are the kind of breaches which happen into a network, right? Be it a ransomware, be it data leakage, be it all sorts of attacks which are inside out to outside in. These are essentially a test of your security controls. So you test the security controls through a breach attack simulation method. Okay. And then you give the solution for that for the security controls. Don't go and change the business applications all the time. Okay. So it's not possible, right? You know, we give suggestions that you change this patch, put this patch. Without that, can I do this? So we are working on this breach and attack simulation. And then to extend that in a realistic manner, how do we do it in the real place? Okay. The problem is that we can't really make changes into so many aspects which are there in the real network, right? AIC comes in first. So you need to have an environment where you can actually replicate this, feel confident, and then you put it back to the, in the real place. Okay. And that is what we call the cyber range. Okay. So we are working on a framework to attack simulation, to deployment of that for the CISO and his team on the real place. And before that, we are doing it in the cyber range. Okay. So that's the left to right shift that we are doing right from the red teaming exercise. I am not telling that red teaming is not important, but this is, I guess it's more important in this today's age of increased digitalization.
Yeah, I agree with you because, I would say even red teaming or I was just recently reading the NCA guidelines for Saudi Arabia. They have also asked to contextualize the security posture and which calls for a simulated exercise. So I think that is what you're also trying to drive at, that you first test it out in a simulated slash digital twin kind of a scenario on your Purple Range kind of a platform, where you replicate the entire, I would say, environment of the production environment of the client without touching the real production environment. And then you simulate a threat and see how it actually performs against it. So I think that's a brilliant, I would say, disruptive way of approaching it. But just to be a bit more curious, so now that there are other breach and attack simulation, typical breach and attack platforms, BAS platforms as they call it. So how does Purple Range, I would say, differentiate from those?
Okay. So see, we have always been working on an outcome model, Arindam. Okay. So if you don't have the outcomes in place, whatever exercises that you do doesn't matter. Okay. So the breach and attack simulation, which is part of our Purple Range, okay, focuses on the exact outcome which the company has to get. Okay. So for example, you have a checkpoint firewall, a checkpoint IPS. Okay. And you run and breach and attack simulation, you find that this is susceptible to certain kind of ransomware attack. Okay. I will going to tell you that this signature was not invoked in that checkpoint firewall. And if you enable this particular ransomware can be protected.
Right.
And then I will enable that on the cyber range, show that effect to you, and then you can replicate back to your production environment. Okay. So owning the last mile, Arindam, is what is missing. So we are here to own the last mile. And for that, obviously, the breach and attack simulation has to give me that thing. Okay. And what we have also done, Arindam, you might be pleased to know that we have also integrated a SOAR platform along with that. Okay. So we can actually automate what we are doing on the cyber range back to the environment with the production environment is there after you have had the confidence of checking.
So, and I'm sure this can integrate with any existing SOAR of the customer, right?
As
It's
well.
not.
Absolutely, it can integrate with the existing SOAR, and that brings in the you have to think about how it brings down the load on the customer as well. Okay, if
Right.
introduce you have maybe 10 to 15 different technologies running already, and then you introduce
Mhm.
another technology. Do you introduce another technology or enable it to reduce your load and increase the posture of cybersecurity, right? So that's the aim that we are doing, and we have been pretty successful in this part of the country. And I'm very curious to know, Arindam, that how is the MENA region? I understand a lot of transformation is happening in that region. How do you think that this kind of framework-based approach is something happening in that region as well?
Yeah, sure. In fact, like that's one of the reasons why, the strategic tie-up between RSM and PurpleSynapz, I think that's one of the major forces behind it. I would say that there are two parts to it, right? The one part to it is from where we started the conversation, that how do you give or how do you contextualize the real issue at hand by, simulating a real life scenario, testing it out over there, and then rolling it out in the production environment without hampering your A part of it, as you likely say. Instead of CIA, availability has to be on top most importance. Of course,
Right.
ensuring the C and I also are in place, but at least something you just roll out for the sake of rolling out because security guy asked for it should
Hmm.
not be the case. So I think that definitely is a very powerful use case. Uh, Apart from that, also, if you see in the market, the way people talk about security, it's a necessary thing, definitely. I mean, like it's a given, right? It's the most basic requirement of, everybody needs to have a SOC, either outsourced or in-house. They will have a SIM. They are now having a SOAR, and they are having the UEBAs and all of those in the world, which are all necessary tools and tackles.
Hmm.
Despite that, like I said, that often CISOs complain that the CIOs are asking, or CEOs are asking that, uh, despite you making me spend so much money, because end of the day, security or cybersecurity is like an insurance subject, right? You don't sort of start planning an ROI. It's
Hmm.
not, I've implemented ERP, so my production process has improved and my cost has saved by X amount and all of that. Security, because the threats are evolving, the attacks are evolving, the hackers are getting smarter. So we'll have to keep pace with them, right? At the same time, we have to bring a practical, I would say, approach to it, and that's where I think your platform plays a major role. The other part is, of course, there is always the big skill divide, right? The
Hmm.
demand for cybersecurity is only increasing, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, I guess. But even more so in Middle East, I would say uh, there are two parts to it again. One part to it is, of course, due to geopolitical issues or some of the companies which are growing phenomenally and becoming truly global worldwide, they are always under threat. Okay. So one part is the, I would say, public sector and government organizations. Second part is the larger organizations. Third are the BFSI, which are generally always the usual target for, attacks. So naturally, the awareness out here is growing definitely. But how do you help the CISO is one part of it.
Hmm.
Second part of it is, of course, how do you help them bridge the gap? How do you say, for instance, a lot of telco service providers, they're also now becoming security service providers, right?
Right.
Full-fledged. So what is the way to check the resilience of that team in terms of if a real life attack really happens? Because, generally what we, or at least I have seen, is most of the team members, they are hired based on a bunch of certifications that they have, which is maybe, product specific, if you really ask me. And rest is all the experience that they've gathered while, working in an organization.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is one part of it. Second part of it is there is a dearth of good skills, which, the gestation period between hiring maybe a fresh engineer from the campus and then moving that engineer towards some level of maturity or readiness to be readily working in inside a cybersecurity team or workforce. So these are two challenges which I'm sure in other parts of the world also, and that's there in this part of the world as well. At least, the skill gap out here, people are saying anywhere ranges between 30 to 40% any given point of time, which is significantly large. That means there's a significant gap between what the CISO needs as a team versus what they're getting. So how do you think, Purple Synapse addresses that kind of a problem?
So I think it's a worldwide phenomenon that is happening. The problem of skills in cybersecurity, I always give an example that when you want to teach somebody cricket, okay, the game of cricket, I think that's pretty popular that part of the country as well, at that part of the world as well, right? So if you want to teach somebody cricket, and if you give them a kit bag, okay, you can teach them only a little bit. Okay. Now, if you give them the experience of the stadium, if they play in the stadium, if they
Hmm.
experience the crowd, experience the pitch, the air, the ball, the sledging, the entire environment, then you understand cricket. That's why you
Hmm.
have local cricket, and then they go on to play cricket. Okay. Cybersecurity is exactly like that. You can't teach cybersecurity in silos. Okay. So most of
Right.
the teachings which are happening is that you teach a CEH, okay, ethical hacking. Okay. But what ethical hacking? If you don't understand a firewall, you don't understand networking, you don't understand operating system, you don't understand the holistic thing that you are going to do. That's why our engineer from zero to productive takes a long time in cybersecurity. And you
Hmm.
always have those small team of people who are experienced. And that's why it's not spreading throughout the world. And there's a dirt in that.
Mhm.
So what we have been able to do successfully over the last 3 years is that the Purple range is a simulated environment for giving actual hands-on training on real tools and
Mhm.
real incidents which are happening. So what we are actually doing is that on the Purple range, we have a program in which we go to colleges and we go to universities, and we are actually training them in a 6-month period and then giving it to the large enterprises who are running these SOCs and other services. Now you will
Hmm.
be surprised to know that they are really productive within the next 2 months that they join the organization. Okay,
Hmm.
because they have already experienced the cyber range, they have already experienced the tool, they know the MITRE framework, they know kill chain, they have seen the SIM working, they have onboarded logs, they have troubleshooted network, things like that which you do hands-on. And we always believe in hands-on. See, theory you can always have, you can always read some
Hmm.
videos, there are a lot of content elsewhere. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to solve the skills problem of the world by actually tying up the education and the academia with the the so-called the place that we belong to, right, the industry. And if you can bridge that gap through real environmental experiences, and that we could give because of obviously we have been all of us in PurpleSynapz, the founders have spent around 20 years in the cyber industry. So we
Right.
really understand what's required on the other side, and that's what we have put in. And it's pretty successful in this part of the country. And I hope that a company like RSM, who has got so much of effect on a worldwide effect in terms of disrupting the way cybersecurity is perceived in the industry. I think
Mhm.
we can really work with them and maybe the academia in that part of the country as well to solve the skills problem. I'm very confident of that because we have been doing that here, and it's pretty very very successful, honestly. This program.
So if I hear you correctly, one part of the question I had asked you was, the dearth of skill sets, and even if we hire a very good fresher from a campus, the readiness of that fresher cybersecurity engineer to actually deliver, there is obviously a gap, right? And which is what you are addressing by your, I would say, as you call it, business to academy model of, working with those academicians to include your training package to be embedded with them so that these guys who enroll and who have ambitions in the cybersecurity, profession can be made more ready. And I just love that, uh, metaphorical statement that you gave, that it's almost like playing the game, right? So instead of just playing the game of or learning how to play the game by reading a book, you actually make them play the game so that
Yes,
they learn it better.
there's no other
I
way,
think
Arindam. I
I
mean,
think I
and
think I
in
think that's the
cybersecurity at
most
least.
correct. In fact, like it can apply beyond that. But anyway, the discussion is not about that. But I think it's I think again a very disruptive take on how do you address, or how do you sort of accelerate the learning process of a cybersecurity professional who is at, I would say, the start point of his or her journey. And very interesting.
So I'll
This
just add to that,
definitely,
and
yeah.
I'll just add to that. I just missed a point. There is also another part of the journey that who are there in the the SOC team or
Yeah,
or
yeah,
or the
I was just about to ask you that. See, this is one part of the, question that I had, that, uh, how do you make or accelerate the readiness of your team if you're, if you're safe, because the market has a dearth of resources. So obviously you would be looking forward to a huge bulk of
Hmm,
resources coming out from campuses.
hmm,
And if you can accelerate their learning process, nothing like it, because if there is a dearth of resources, that's the only other option that you have in mind, right? Other than the automation bit of it, which is already perhaps there with you. So second part of it is you already have a cybersecurity team as an organization, and for especially for the larger organizations such as the banks or the
right.
telcos, they need to have their own very large cybersecurity team, and the large enterprises as well. Some of the smaller enterprises may do more of outsourcing and just
Hmm,
have some key decision makers. That's it. But at the same time, be it the IT organization on the whole or the cybersecurity organization, they also would definitely need to be tested on their readiness, because maybe sometimes what happens is we start getting into the laissez-faire mode, right? And okay, fine, we know this is going to happen, we're going to tackle. If something new happens, then everything, all hell breaks loose, right?
hmm.
So how are you checking that resilience? How are you helping in addressing that part of the problem of the existing team?
Absolutely. So see, the way to test is that you have to put them at war, right?
Okay.
And our CTO, Ashok always says that it is always better to sweat at peace than to bleed at war. Okay,
Right.
and that's the motto that we take in all our trainings. The idea
Mm-hmm.
is to put them on test. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we have had diverse engagement in the large, cybersecurity companies in this part of the country. I mean, in India, like Wipro and Infosys and HCLs of the world. And what we do is that we have these modules which finally end up in the purple range. Okay, so incident response. So are you able to respond to an incident?
Mm-hmm.
Can you look at the firewall log and you can correlate with the same log, and can you respond? And how fast can you respond? Okay. If you do a VAPT exercise, you do a VAPT exercise, you prepare a report, and then I block them in the firewall. And then can you navigate beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you enforce a security policy in an environment which has so many components? Test them out. Okay. So these are the practical problems that people face. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And scenario oriented. How do you troubleshoot? Okay, do you make a VPN? What are the things that you look at when the production is running? See, in an operations training, you need to have everything while so the engine has to run and the fan belt has to be changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our friend used to always say that, and that's where the purple rain comes into all these trainings. Okay, because it's always running. You make the changes, and if you falter, if you take more time, that is also recorded. Okay. So it's a very impactful training that we can do, and we have been very well appreciated by the team leads that it has to make a difference in your daily operations immediately after you finish the training. So it's mostly evaluation oriented and practical oriented on the purple range, and we have different modules: SOC, incident handling, VAPT, etc., covering the various domains of cybersecurity.
So basically, what you're trying to say is, one is typically any cybersecurity professional aspirant can have an individual training session with you. Secondly, you can what we heard rightly is to work closely with the academia, with the various universities, so as to say to embed this as an additional, maybe curriculum. The
Hmm.
third is, what, in the typical art
The
parlance,
B2B side.
B2B,
Hmm.
correct, where we go to all these enterprises, check their cyber resilience, and then cater to them almost like a custom package, you can say, to bring them up to
Right,
speed.
right, right.
And very interestingly, I believe you also work on an outcome-based model on these kind of areas also.
Yes, yes, yes. So we have been lucky enough that British Telecom, one of the large players in the telecom and not only telecom, I'll say the outsourcing space. We have
Correct.
been working very closely with them, which is the hire to train and deploy program. Okay, so we go to colleges, we hire them. We have custom training, absolutely custom made for BT. Okay, which involves scenarios from their customer scenarios. Okay, and then they select only the cream of the lot. Okay, as an outcome based model. And uh, uh, and uh, the confidence that we had because of our past existence, we could go into that outcome based model, and the collaboration has worked very well. We're expanding into many territories now, specifically network and other specialized domains that BT has. So it's a multi-year contract now that we are doing, and that's has given us, and that has led to many other organizations in this part of the country that we are doing such model. So yeah, it's an outcome-based model.
Especially that also addresses another very important aspect, I think, because cybersecurity resources are not only hard to hire, they're even harder to retain because naturally the
Hmm.
demand is high. If you're good, then you'll be hired by someone else at the drop of a hat. So again, if you break down, say for instance, the entire cybersecurity organization into an L1, L2, L3 layer in
Hmm.
terms of the skill set and experience, I think the highest attritions are there happening at the L2, L3 level, more than
Correct.
the L1 level. Because L1 level, you have standard operating procedures and
Hmm.
runbooks and tools and automation and whatnot to at least, manage that show. The L2, L3 is difficult to retain.
Right.
So if
Right.
you possibly can design let me call it a skill upgradation framework
Hmm.
by which you can start moving L1 to L2, L2 to L3 using your
Engine.
engine of training and learning. I think that also can be a major differentiator. I think you guys are working on that kind of a model also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We are working, and I would love to have, RSM has this very deep relationships with the clients. Okay. See, these models work when the client is also invested,
Yeah,
right? Because you need to really give the access of your floor, right? Your difficult scenarios, your problem areas, and come out and say that this is what we are trying to retain. And we have been working on an L2 model as well, where L2 waiting for the L2 for 3 months and then they don't join, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's that's there. We have been able to crack that as well, and there are some secret sources out there which can be, but that involves a lot of involvement from the B2B, the client side. But yes, we can solve this, and we are able to solve this, and it has to be experiential and context oriented.
Hmm.
And yeah, we are able to do that, and I'm sure that we should be able to replicate it in that part of the world as well.
Because what happens is if you start with this program, the way I see the government or the client should look at it is from the client side, the way they can create is like a career path for for anybody joining the
Absolutely.
cybersecurity team.
Mhm.
Because I'm providing you with state-of-the-art training and facilities, etc. And as and when you start off upgrade yourself, I'm creating a path for you to move up the ladder as well, right? So both as a personal aspiration perspective as well as from a professional roadmap perspective in terms of career growth, I think this can provide a great amount of impetus, which can ultimately provide the secret sauce of retention of such resources.
Absolutely. And It's not that the companies are not invested in this particular concept. They have strong talent management teams, but
Correct.
doing the training and the experiential understanding in-house, okay, it's quite difficult because it's a different trait. Because learning and development from a technology standpoint, understanding the mentality, being with them, evaluating them, testing them, and we also have to keep on working on certain aspect of communication as you upgrade yourself. So all that
Correct.
included, it's very difficult to do in-house. But yes, talent management investment that people have to do today's world.
So I think, that brings us to the point where, especially is in Middle East, if you look, it's across all the countries in Middle East, especially the most happening or the largest country out here is Saudi Arabia in the Middle East region. Uh, in terms of, again, in terms of economy and technology spend, Saudi Arabia and UAE are leading the pack, right? They are truly global in nature in terms of most of the companies that they have. Even their banks are now getting global. The power sector, that's also getting global. Multiple investment bodies are getting created. So what's happening is, as you open up more and more, the threats also accelerate, as we know, right? So that way, cyber resilience and cyber security is of topmost importance today. Okay. And over there, if we are addressing, I would say, two of the very key issues that is there in a CISO's office. One is the skill set, which is always in scarcity, always in demand. And the second part is how you making the existing team more resilient. At the same time, you are giving him perhaps a team which is more, I would say, ready for the war, as you rightly mentioned. And of course, we are also trying to simplify a few of his issues, and by giving it a practical context using the platform of Purple Range. I think this is very unique in terms of its approach. Um, it differentiates from the usual sim sock SOAR kind of an approach, which is already there. I mean, like, it's not like we'll build a new story by saying that we can also provide you some services like these. Those services are very important. We can, as RSM, help them in those areas also. But this, I would like to believe, is more and more going to be a more strategic decision from the client side. As you rightly said, as being consultants, we firmly believe that until unless the client is invested, the transformation won't happen, right? So, and you also mentioned the same. So I think it's a perfect marriage of the audit and consulting capabilities of RSM, uh, which gets now extended with the partnership with PurpleSynapz. And more than ever, we are not just using one more jargon of hyper automation, but actually putting it into play and showing them the outcome. So I think that's very key in the market, and I'm very excited and upbeat about it. I think together we can make a huge difference out there in terms of both skill enablement and availability, as well as simplifying the challenges of deploying a very simple thing like a new patch in your security systems, or maybe even a new software patch in one of your applications, by testing it out on such an environment before actually putting it into play. So with that, I think I can end with a very happy note that we have, I think, joined hands at the right moment, and the market is only going to grow from here. So I think we are looking at something very interesting in the next few days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Arindam. Our relationship goes back decades, but
Right.
in this new avatar with RSM, we are very delighted. All my founders are very excited. It's a large brand. You have your customers, you have your trusted customers who are looking, and I think also it also brings a sense of responsibility when it's a company like RSM goes and works with in deep with such large organizations to bring a value which is actually outcome oriented. Okay.
True,
and
true.
and also it's all complementary, right? A SOC has to be there, a VAPT has to be there. There are compliance norms, and these are complementary things which will bring an outcome to the organization, and that's what we are hoping to do. And we are really excited. I think let's go out to the market, and we'll be eager to showcase this to the customers there, have discussions, and we'll be eager to take feedback as to where we can go from here.
Absolutely. So one is, of course, we will be doing more of, campaigning, etc. as well, apart from meeting our customers and presenting this, which we are already doing as a part of RSM. But yes, nowadays it's all about show and tell. The more and more they can actually experience what happens on your Purple Range platform, that will actually make them truly believe that what we're trying to, prove as a point here. So I think, it has been a very good journey with you always, even when we were colleagues. And I'm sure as partners also today, we will be able to drive home the value that we always try to jointly create. Thank you, Anindya. We had a great session.
Thank you so much. Meet you soon.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.
Yeah.
Protect your business from evolving risks. Book a 30-minute strategy session today. Contact at inquiry@cs.rsm.de.